For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dlamini. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss 25 years of democracy, Part 3, Denial of Dignity, Then and Now. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
So you suggest in your column that dignity is not simply a personal question, but it arises in relationships with other people. Can you explain that?
Yeah, you know, people say so-and-so is very dignified. But the way in which I am concerned about dignity and the Constitution is concerned about dignity is dignity in relation to other people. If you treat someone in a particular way, you shout at them, or they still do, I suppose, that when an African is being served, they put the money bang like this on the counter. You're doing something that infringes the dignity of another person. So their dignity happens in relation to others. What sometimes happens is because someone is experienced being treated in that way, they anticipate that something is going to happen, and they then behave in a particular way. Like some waiters fawn over you. Yes, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, you like it that way? Sure, sure, sure. And then they go running, or they come after you, or at the petrol station. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. I say, no, I'm not a boss. You know, part is gone. But some whites obviously want to still be treated that way. So they don't know that I believe in non-racialism and dignity of human beings, but people have got into a habit because maybe they've been given a smack, a whole lot of things that have got them to believe that unless they treat whites in a particular way, they will suffer. So your dignity depends on an equal relationship with others. That doesn't mean that there will be an end to social inequality, but it does mean that at the very least we should be showing respect for one another. Unless that happens, the dignity of some will suffer.
You also speak of denial of dignity continuing today. How can that be, since, as you say, respect for dignity is at the center of the Bill of Rights, and we no longer have apartheid like before, so that can infringe on dignity?
Well, I mentioned in that article that when I approach a police roadblock, or when the police are standing there and they're looking at which cars to stop, they look at me and I just go, you know, and most of the time. It didn't happen in prison, but now it happens that I just go, because they think Umlungu is fine, you know. But the black people are called aside, their cars are called aside, they are frisked. Now, what is happening, which is very interesting, is that the institutionalized racism of apartheid is continuing now, perpetrated also by black policemen. Because if it's institutionalized, in other words, doesn't depend on the ill will of a human being, but it's a way of understanding who is a potential criminal. Potential criminal means black. And even if you're a black person, you don't understand necessarily in your conscious self that you are acting out what white racists used to do. And in your conscious self, you think you're behaving like a policeman. You're identifying who, or police woman, you're identifying who is an actual criminal. And criminal equals black. Also, on the level of dignity, people used to get water who don't get water now. Some people have never got water. How do you make yourself clean and presentable to the world if you don't have access to water? amongst very many things. And in that sense, the oppressions of apartheid are continuing into the present, despite the Bill of Rights, because someone has eaten money that is meant to have gone for the well-being of black people. Put toilets still around. They say 3 years, in 3 years they'll be eliminated. But what must parents do for 3 years when they're worrying about their kids falling into a pit toilet, etc.?
You also speak of attacks on dignity in relation to authorities, but also relations between members of the public, including the neighborhoods today. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. You know, where I live, just up the road, they have what's called a gated community or an enclosure. About 18 years ago, they started, or even before I came there, they started to lobby to close off the area. And some of us went and opposed this in the ANC branch at the time and at the Community Policing Forum. And there were some whites in this meeting who were very hysterical, saying, "Have you ever experienced crime?" As if they were the only ones who had experienced crime. So I said, yes, now I've experienced crime, but I don't think that gating is a way of dealing with this. The way in which gating, the idea of gating, is similar to the Middle Ages, when the king or the nobles had a castle, and at night they'd lift the drawbridge up and the rabble would be out there. Now when the rabble want to come into our enclosure, they usually come by foot, and they're mainly black. If a white person comes in, the white person is usually driving a car and they salute, you know, things like that. The black person may get asked questions. Now, I am not part of that, but I used to be part of a WhatsApp group about security. And they used to send these messages that are racist, which say, 4 Bravo men, meaning black men, are coming down St. George's Street or something like that. Now, they are implying that these people driving there are potentially dangerous. Now, we're living in a country where people shoot all the time. They take the law into their own hands, and there's an identification, a racial profiling of the danger as being black. I never saw a single WhatsApp referring to whites coming into the enclosure. Now, we got kicked out of that group because we were all the time raising this question of profiling. And what's interesting is that some of the people who are part of the enclosure are actually black people, actually ANC members, who've gone along with all of this. And it's similar to what I was saying about the institutionalized racism. You buy into something which seems to be just a way of crime detection, and the private security agencies help create an atmosphere of constant fear. Have you checked your alarm? Have you got the latest panic button? Have you got the latest addition, extra 1 inch onto your electric fence? Have you got your gate checked? And people are encouraged to live in an atmosphere of war. And that is what I'm saying, is that it's not just the police, it's not just the state, it's also private citizens. They used to send also messages saying people are loitering. And I replied and I said, but what does loitering mean? You know, this is a public road, even though you have actually decided to close it off. People are allowed to walk along. They're also allowed to rest if they want to rest. And so that's what I mean by the privatization of security, by private security industry, but also by members of the public taking things into their own hands.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was political analyst Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about 25 years of democracy, Part 3, Denial of Dignity, Then and Now.